Hi AIS, welcome to week 6, the final week of the 6 and 6 campaign. If you've missed any of the past weeks, just to catch you up, for the past 5 weeks and 2 days, I have been embarking on a campaign to take all 6 of the architecture registration exams through NCARB, and I've been showcasing some of the resources and tools that I've been using, and now we're going into week 6, which is practice management. And what's strange is that practice management is actually listed as number 1 on the list of AREs as illustrated on the handbook and on other resources. So typically actually start off with this first exam, but I'm ending it off with this one, and I'll tell you a little bit about my thought process and maybe why this wasn't the best tactic in a bit. But first I wanted to recap week 5, which was last week, and that was project management. So let's look into that one. So when you look, I failed this one, and let me tell you, this was probably the hardest fail to get of all of them, because this was the exam that I actually really thought I was going to pass when I went to see that provisional report. But, you know, things happen, and sometimes you learn from them, and you just gotta keep going. And so looking at how I actually did on this exam, I got 3 level 2s of the 5 sections, which is, that shows that I demonstrated minimum performance required to show competency. And then in project work planning and in project quality control, I was either not meeting it or far below those standards. Looking at this though, and looking at the study materials that are required to do practice management and construction evaluation, it makes a lot of sense why people actually do it in the inverse order compared to the way that I did it. So typically it's normal to start with practice management and then drift slowly into project management, and then perhaps go into construction and evaluation, because as I mentioned last week and in the previous week, all 3 of these touch on the administrative side of being an architect, and they all incorporate the contracts to some degree. Practice management definitely incorporates the least amount of contracts of all 3 of these, so I guess that's why sometimes it's easier to wrap your head around the core architectural ones, and then moving into project management, you get a little bit more of a broader sense of them, and then construction and evaluation brings in all of those more construction admin contracts. So looking at practice management, unlike project management, this definitely deals at a much more broad scale as to how you actually manage an architectural practice. So how do you manage an office? How do you actually go about staffing that office? How do you make sure that you're fiscally responsible? How do you make sure that you're handling risk management? And all those different types of things. So you can see that the 4 critical sections for this exam are business operations, finance risk and development of practice, practice-wide delivery of services, and practice methodologies. All 4 of those start to talk about exactly what I was just saying, basically making sure that you can not only govern the practice of architecture, but that you can actually manage a practice and include all of the professional ethics and fiduciary responsibilities that go into managing a practice. Just like all of the other exams, the ARE 5.0 handbook clearly illustrates what to expect. Unlike all of the other exams, this division is actually the smallest division in terms of the amount of items on the test, as well as the overall test duration. So you'll notice there's only 80 items, and I say only because the last couple had 95 or 120. The test duration is 2 hours and 45 minutes, and the appointment duration is 3 hours and 30 minutes. And you can see the breakdown of the 4 sections. This one's pretty evenly spread out, but the slight majority is in section 2, finance, risk, and development of practice, slowly followed by the first and the third sections, so business operations and practice-wide delivery of services. As you're looking into the research section of the handbook and all of the other sections, you get a better understanding of what resources are really best to utilize for this exam, and that includes a range of not only the architecture handbook for professional practice, which is probably number 1, but also some of the more ethical documents. So you'll notice there's the AIA Code of Ethics and Professional Conduct, there's the NCARB Legislative Guidelines and Model Law, as well as the NCARB Model Rules of Conduct. And all of those documents are actually free online, and you can see them just like here. This is the NCARB Legislative Guidelines and Model Law, and then there's Model Rules of Conduct, and then I believe I may have closed it. Oh, here it is. This is the 2018 Code of Ethics and Professional Conduct by the AIA. So all of these are online, and they really help you make sure that not only do you understand what it takes to be an ethical architect, which I would say is really important. But it also helps you know how to manage situations that come up in your firm, especially if they're ones that are not so good. So then you can scroll back and remember that in addition to all of that, there are contracts that you also have to know for this exam. In comparison to project management and construction evaluation, so in comparison to the purple and the orange, the blue obviously touches only on 2 different contracts. Primarily, those are B101 and C401, although I've been reading on the ARE 5.0 community that you'll also want to know the A201 in order to do this. I see a question that says, what do we type on the browser to go there? You can just Google ARE 5.0 handbook for this overall matrix, and then you can Google the individual titles of these resources to find them online. So then I also wanted to highlight that to study, in addition to reading all of those ethics documents and codes of conduct, I'm still using the Black Spectacles videos to get a broader understanding of what to expect for the exam. For this particular one, it has 11 hours and 30 minutes of videos, definitely on the shorter side compared to the other ones. And I'm also going back into the contracts, so back into C401, which looks like this one, back into B101, which is the standard agreement between the owner and architect, which is this one. And I'm using those Schiff-Hanahan lectures, the Schiff-Hardin-Hanahan lectures to actually really get back into the nitty-gritty of those contracts. So definitely utilize this resource. He goes into depth on what all of the separate sections within the contracts are, what the implications are, how that actually helps you stay liable legally, and how it really helps you manage your potential risk if any situation were to come up. So those are the overall things I'm using. Just a reminder, similar to the last few exams, there are other resources that you can use when looking at the AHPP. Not only can you use the Pluralsight guide to how to study the AHPP for this exam, where you can see they highlighted which study content is required for this exam, what is recommended for light study and review, and what to read for context or just understanding. But then there's also a similar guide that was produced by Narmore Wright, which is here. So there's a lot of resources out there that you can use so that you aren't wasting your time and you're making sure that you're reading the chapters that actually correlate with this exam. I also just wanted to recommend once more that when you're looking at this exam or any of the other exams, you definitely jump over to the ARE 5.0 community through your NCARB portal to really see what people did to pass. On here, I found a particular post where I actually found another study guide. I know last week I shared a study guide I found, and this one is specifically for practice management, and this particular individual, her name was Tatiana, shout out to you if you're listening. She also shared an overview of contracts as well as an overview of some financial ratios. So going into this week, it's kind of strange because I flipped the order that is typical for studying for these administrative exams. So I actually feel much more prepared for this exam than I have for other exams this early in the week. So I'm optimistic about that. And then in addition, just for full transparency, I should definitely let you all know that I've been working with the AI Code of Ethics as well as the NCARB Rules of Conduct over the past few months as AIS president. So I'm hoping that that will help me with this exam. I will let you guys know. And if they do, then those are definitely documents that I recommend you dive into and get to know really closely, if not just for your practice, but also for taking these exams. So yeah, going into week 6, tune in on Wednesday for a few more resources and an update on where I am in the study process. And I will let you guys know how it goes on Friday. And then just so you are all aware, after the end of this campaign, I will be sharing a blog post on the AIS.org website, compiling all of the resources and recommendations that I have for all of you as you embark on your path to licensure from this experience. So stay tuned for all of that, and see you guys later.